Welcome to Soulful Practices Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Holling-Brooks, and over the past 20 years, I have been on a journey of healing and awakening. I'm also a coach and practitioner for clients on their journey of unbridling their true self. The number one question I'm asked is, what meditation or practice will help me reach my goals? While there is no one meditation or secret mantra that will unlock our own awakening, there is a doorway that will lead us there. And that's the doorway of learning and cultivating the skills of self-reflection and contemplation. Each episode of this podcast offers you pocket teachings and practices that you can implement right away to help you courageously connect with living your authentic soul-led life. Let's dive into this week's episode. Welcome to episode 46 of Soulful Practices Podcast. We are over halfway through of season 4, which I can hardly believe that. And we are diving into this season. How do we courageously connect with the sparks of inspiration that are within us, connect with our voice, connect with our life that we've created, but yet something is just ever so slightly holding us adjacent to it? How do we connect with the whispers and spirit coming from our heart and our soul guiding us? How do we connect with another being from this place that is rooted in love and not fear? And ultimately, how do we connect into that greater inner web of life? Which leads us to a very interesting question of kind of where we've been slowly kind of clearing the blocks along the way and having conversations that are sometimes uncomfortable and bringing us to a very pivotal crossroads in any awakening and healing journey where we're really working on the idea of this interweaving of waking up, kind of what it's called in the mystical world, growing up, meaning allowing ourselves to free ourselves from the quote wounded child's experiences and survival patterns within us, and allowing ourselves to grow to a different stage of consciousness, one that has more sovereignty, more ownership, more connection, more truth, and it's willing to be in a place of a pursuit of happiness for self and for others, knowing that there is no happiness if I have it at the expense of another, right? And really bringing us in there. And so this growing up mixes with this awakening within us to a different level of being, a new way of consciousness. A quote from squirming on the floor to like crawling to standing up and starting to walk on wobbly legs, and then ultimately running, jumping, skipping. It doesn't mean that any of those other stages were inappropriate. They were beautiful for the stage that they were for and the skills that it gave us in that stage. And we now know, like, if we skip one of those stages, it quote stunts like Swiss cheese holes the development of us in the future. And we've got to go back and kind of work on those and heal those unmet needs and those places where we were able to fully develop ourselves, right? But we can. And then there is this place of transcending and integrating. So it's one thing to grow and to see and to be like, yes, I get it. I conceptually get what my body can do. It's a total another thing to invite my body into that direct conversation, invite it into learning how to move that way and practicing it and wrestling with it, and then discovering there's ways it can move that we didn't even conceive of, and what would that look like, and working through those different stages of awakening to a new way again, growing into that, having to challenge the way of being and the new way and that sense of that unknown, and then that integration back in. And it's this beautiful spiral that allows ourselves to move through these different stages over and over and over again, expanding, expanding, expanding. And so again, this is going to lead us to a question that might seem a little high and lofty to take on in a podcast, but we're going to just start to pepper it in. And that is then, what is the purpose in our life? What is the purpose of a healing journey? What is the purpose in awakening? What are we up to? What is there for us? And if it's there for me per those laws of mystical workings, it's there for you too, because what is in one is in the whole. So Thich Nhat Hanh, a beautiful spiritual teacher and modern day mystic who recently passed away, he wrote in the heart of the Buddha's teachings, transforming suffering into peace, joy, and liberation. He gave us a hint of where to go. And he wrote, "Your purpose is to be yourself. You don't have to run anywhere to become someone else. You are wonderful just as you are." So this goes with the heart of Buddhist teachings, transforming our suffering into peace, into joy, into liberation. The name of my upcoming book that's getting ready to release at the 1st of November is Trauma Informed Enlightenment. You cannot have that enlightenment without that trauma informed perspective, without willingness to go into the suffering so that we can see what was happening there. What were the different aspects of us? Not to relive it, not to shadow pity ourselves, not to give us that bypassy, well, didn't know any better, but now we'll do better. It's like, no, to really be with that so that we can honor the strength that was in that suffering. We can honor the restrictions that was in that suffering, and we can ultimately transform, i.e., enlighten, let go of the burden piece of it and allow ourselves to gain the wisdom that allows us to awaken, to grow, to integrate, to transform into greater peace, greater joy, and greater liberation. Over and over and over again, each and every time we have that spark of awakening. And Thich Nhat Hanh pointed us, and he says it in his view of the heart of the Buddhist teachings, that really what is the purpose of life? It is to be ourselves. And so then that begs that question, what is ourselves, right? And in season 4, we have been continuously kind of asking that question in different forms and then challenging like what we see in the mirror, so to speak. Like on that reflection, what are we seeing back? Is that really us, or is that an experience? Is that a role that we play? Is that what is the essence of ourselves? And it's not to run anywhere and develop a new mask and say, this is who I am, and package myself and brand it and put it out to the world. It's also not to become somebody else, that comparison, right? It's to be your beautiful, and I love his word, wonderful self, just as you are. So I just want you to feel into that. Your purpose is to be nothing other than you, your real you, your authentic you. And each moment we have an opportunity to recognize when we are in alignment with that and when we're like a North Star, a little bit off to the left or a little bit off to the right, or whoa, I fell down in a ravine and I am running on an old pathway that I know is not me. And in that moment, it's not to say, oh, I missed my mark. Instead, it's to say, oh, this is my purpose. My purpose is to come back home, to come back to center, and to once again align myself with who I am as I am, because that version of me is within me. Because he answers that question, that doubt. Do we need to go outside of ourselves? Do we need to become like him as a spiritual teacher? Do we need to become more like Buddha? Do we need to become more like Jesus? Do we need to come, more like Father Sky and Mother Earth? Like, what is it that we're looking to become? And it's like, no, 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 none of that. You have within you that wonderful, beautiful, rooted in love self that also has its own frequency and light, its own unique way of perceiving and working with the world. There is a self that wants to be contributed to the whole. And the purpose is to show up, to contribute that, right? Not to beat ourselves up when we find ourselves lost in that trance of unworthiness, that habit of, striving, going somewhere else, getting the next quote piece of paper to put on the wall or the next costume that we can put on and say, this is who I am because this is what I've done and this is, who I am in life. Like, nope, nope, nope. Those are great. Those are beautiful things, but that's not really what this is talking or pointing us to. It's also to recognize when we are lost in fear and defensive bracing or gripping to a way of being or perception or a thought that's born out of scarcity, that's born out of not knowing from that trance of unworthiness, right? Or feeling what it feels like to be pressed upon by another being. And therefore, that desire to liberate yourself allows you to justify pressing on another, right? It is that endless shadow dance of comparison where we have an opportunity every time that we wake up to it to, instead of bashing ourselves over the head and adding more suffering, more pain, more separation, more division within ourselves, can we instead pause, do a true deep bow of gratitude and a smile and open up to who are we truly? What is the real version of myself? The one that is connected to the influence of our mystical heart. I talked about this mystical heart in the last episode, episode 44. So if that's sounding like intriguing to you and you haven't seen that, and then I invite you, or was it 40? 44, 45. It would be 45, sorry. We're in 46. I'm like, where are we in space and time? So allowing ourselves to simply do what I just did, make a mistake, honor that like, hey, something fell off with that, and pause and ask. I asked the question like, hey, where are we at right now? And was given that influence and allowed myself to resource that, right? And come up with that and correct that, not to continue to hold myself accountable for that, but to just honor, like, hey, I'm allowed to make some mistakes in here. The question is, do I let myself be guided back? Just like I just did. It's a simple little example, but wow, that's it. That's what we're up to with this teaching. That mystical heart and our soul beings don't judge us the way our personal or tribal or survival parts of ourselves do. It's not in their nature. It's not in the stage of consciousness that they're coming from. So it also says to us, like, hey, our real self is not going to detach ourselves from these things. We are not just our survival self, which is rooted in who and how we've been conditioned to be. And we are also not just our personal egoic level of self, like this idea of who we see ourselves, what we are, and all of that good stuff. We are each of those things plus another. And that's what I believe Thich Nhat Hanh was pointing us towards, is like, how do we allow ourselves to generate the capacity to be able to witness, to see, to understand those different levels and aspects within us so that we can then consciously choose how and who we want to be in that moment based off of who we actually are, our true self, our real self, one that's not striving or looking out anywhere for anybody else to justify it, but goes inward and knows that that answer, that resource is already within me. The question is, am I willing to explore it, excavate it, believe it, partner with it? And here comes this season as to why it's in there. Courageously connect with it. So each time we feel that we are not enough, that we're not doing enough, that we're not being enough, we haven't done enough. We don't have enough letters behind our name. We don't have enough pieces of paper on the wall. We don't have enough accolades coming in, that we're just basically not good enough. Every time we have one of these um, parts of us that pops up beating this drum, can we soften and say, I see you, I hear your drum, and there's another drum here beating too. And that is, my purpose is to be just me. not a version of me that I think I need to be, not a version of me that I think of the other wants me to be. I am enough. I am wonderful just as I am. That answer of who to be and how to be that's in alignment with my true self lies within me. And can I just invite support to help me remember that, to help me discover it, to help me awaken and grow and integrate that part into me? This prayer might sound super simple, and it is. And like every simple prayer and every simple teaching, it requires us to show up over and over and over and over again to work with it with an open energy field, one based in love, one that allows me to let it be what it is. This is my acronym for love. And I do share this in trauma informed enlightenment. Like, do we allow ourselves to let things be what they are? Are we willing then to open to what it is? So can we stop wrestling? This shouldn't be here. It's this should never have happened. This, this should happen this way. Like we're popping ourselves off into all these different parallel kind of stories and imaginations and defensive mechanisms. Can we instead pause and say, okay, what is here? I'm going to let this just be what it is. So it's an inner stance of surrender with that first L of love. The next stance is the act of surrendering. That's opening up. This is the sign to bringing our hands up to the heavens of surrender in American Sign Language. And so do I open? Do I open to the quote altar of life and ask, what is here? What is here that I kind of think I know, but am I willing to let go? So the V stands for vulnerability. Am I willing to be vulnerable? Meaning, am I willing to let go of my knowing, my shields of this is my belief, this is my understanding, this is my framework, this is my way that I'm seeing and perceiving the world? Am I willing to put all of that down? Take a deep breath in, open to that grace of humbleness, and say, I'm ready to be taught. I'm ready to see what parts of me really felt were not okay for me to see for whatever reason, due to a conditioning, a defense, powerless inner state. Can I pause in that moment? And then E stands for open to everything. What is here? Thoughts, feelings, emotions, ways of being. Now, I'm not going to attach to them as me. This is my truth. This is my emotion. This is my experience. I'm going to allow a healthy kind of observer, witnesser, safe that's going to say, wow, there's a part of me that's really feeling this right now. And it's deep and it's true from this point of view. And I can respect that. And I can respect that there's another part of me that has a different one and a different one and a different one. And so it opens us up to automatically shifting from a dualistic win lose, boxing it out defensive posture in me, what I call a self defense mechanism. And I open up to a self respect mechanism. Right? We talked about that in a previous one too. And it really allows us to then connect into all of a sudden, all these different aspects of me can be there. And I can also be in the middle, like a beautiful pillar, rooted in love, rooted in respect, rooted in deeply honoring who I am. And then whenever I look outside of quote self to a different part of me or to a part of another, it's going to come from this perspective, no matter how many parts of me want to rail and riot and do all the things or feel incredibly sad and disappointed and in grief and in loss, that they will still have a part of me that can look outward without looking uh, to pass, to transfer anger, shame, grief, loss to the other through that self-defense stance instead of self-respect. Because when I give respect to any being, including myself, it has to go to others, right? It's just automatic. That's where it wants to go. If it doesn't do that, then it doesn't mean, and also I want to pause just in case you didn't listen to the episode with self respect. Self-respect and respect in general doesn't mean that I'm given everything I want. That is not respect. That's appeasement. That's narcissistic filling of only my wants, needs, wishes, and whims and desires of I want the reality to match my personal preferences in this world. That's not the bedrock of deep grounded respect. That's just narcissism. Respect is I'm willing to hear and honor that each and every being is having multiple different experiences, different thoughts, different whims, different preferences, and they're allowed to have theirs, and I'm allowed to have mine. They're allowed to answer and respond however they want, and I can hold my own center by answering and responding the way my system wants to, rooted in what Thich Nhat Hanh talked about, which is your true self, right? That's the purpose, to find that thread and hold to it. And each and every time we do that, every time we can find that thread that's rooted in love and respect, that's connected to our true self, that mystical heart in our soul, the ripples of how then we show up and how that radiates out into every facet of our personal and collective lives is astounding. In fact, we can't even see it, and we're not supposed to see it because that's part of what we're being asked to walk with true self-respect is I don't have to see how I'm gonna personally benefit from making the choice that's right. I loved, one of the essay questions that my daughter had recently on, one of her scholarship applications, and this particular scholarship application is really community-minded and also kind of bringing in some of those tenets of really empowering different uh, underserved populations and different ways of being to find their own voice and their way instead of like coming in and saying this is the way. Like this whole scholarship is about allowing people to discover their true self. And one of the questions in there is share with us an example of when you followed, and I just love this word, when you followed your own inner guidance and ethics when nobody else was watching. And I thought that was such a perfect, perfect question for these young people applying for this scholarship because it really says, hey, this scholarship that we're about ready to reward is not about just what you've done on a sheet of paper. We want to know what do you do when no one's looking? We want to know how do you courageously pick the path that matches your heart or what they viewed as ethics in a way that even if nobody else sees it, are you still willing to pick it? That is the awakened choice mixed with the growth choice, mixed with the integration choice, right? All three of those coming together to form that beautiful interwoven connection that is strong, right? It radiates out and it touches every single thing like that. So, this is why I believe Thich Nhat Hanh and his heart of the Buddhist teachings brought this forward because when we allow ourselves to be in that place, even if nobody's looking, even if it doesn't bring us, accolades and like praise and all these other things, like we rest in our own inner knowing, hey, this was my North Star and I matched it. And it's a satisfaction, it's a healthy, not necessarily pride, but it's a healthy satisfaction and self-knowing. I call it intrinsic motivation, right? That we are in alignment. And from that alignment, it ripples out. And from that place of rippling out, the saying rising tide rises all ships, is it offers it. And it gives people that opportunity to step into the same liberation, the same health, the same pursuit of happiness, true happiness, not just a fleeting flash of something making me feel good and of enjoyment, but a deep satisfaction within myself that I am showing up in alignment with who I am. This unleashes a healing presence in your own aura and body that ripples out just from you being you. You don't even have to do anything. You don't have to like really say anything. It just emanates from your body and also then makes you a vessel for healing everywhere you are. Could you imagine? And if you're on this podcast, chances are, yes, you can, because that's something that you hold as a value within you too. And together we really are creating an unstoppable healing presence, one little heart, one little moment at a time. Whether we turn that healing presence inward to our own healing journey, or we offer that to another, whether we allow that for our own awakening to see a new way of being, or just our simple way of being is um, a soft, like, invitation, or sometimes a very jarring invitation to another to see the world from a different lens. So, therefore, really, when we embrace what he's talking about and we recognize that this inward healing journey is going to go outward, it's all going to take care of itself. The only thing that I really need to focus on is how am I showing up in this moment and who am I showing up as in this moment. All of a sudden, that immense amount of pressure to become anyone, or that I need to be like anyone, or I need to keep striving and striving and striving and putting this pressure cooker on myself. Oh, I can let all that go, because our heart is asking us to engage in a simpler path. That middle path, as many call it, or in the Enneagram world, it's called the fourth way. It's that the idea that, and my spiritual teacher says this, and I love this, and I've heard it other places, but it's just really come up with me. Is like my life becomes the altar. That becomes my work. It becomes my practice. Mary O'Malley, that wrote the foreword for Trauma Informed Enlightenment, one of her famous sayings from her book, "What's in the way is the way," is life is set up to bring up that which is bound up so it can free it up, and then we can move and we can be with our life, right? I always mess up that last little bit. She's so great at quotes. She can say them like back to nobody, and mine always get a little bit off right at the end. But the gist of it is there, right? It illuminates that pathway that says, hey, just be you. Not your conditioned you, not your tribal you, not the you think you need to be. Let all that go. Honor those. Definitely be able to see them, because if we're not willing to see them, they become shadow. Shadow means I just don't have a willingness or the capacity to see something clearly. It doesn't mean it's evil or bad or right or wrong. None of that stuff. It's just like simple. I can't see it. It's in the shadow. And this illumination path is about saying, I'm willing to let myself see that shadow, to let it come into the light so that I can consciously choose then how I want to show up and what part of me I want to show up from moment to moment to moment. And when we do that, we're moving and living and leading our life with that healing power of love. So here's the good news: we don't have to try to figure this path out. A lot of other beautiful mystical teachers, including Thich Nhat Hanh, have already like walked this path and left us guideposts and left us maps, right? There are so many wise souls out there, many of which I've like referenced, that have been a part of my path in soulful practices with the different quotes and ways of being that I bring in. And I'm sure you have within your own life many different beings that have kind of given you some hints as well. Each one of these beings that have kind of stumbled onto this, awoken to it, been willing to grow and integrate this into their life, they leave behind this remembrance for us that we can resonate with, right? That we can lean into as if they're sitting right here, right next to us. And I know every time I feel into the quote masters, it's like a wink in the eye, a little twinkle, a smile. It just truly reminds me of when I look at videos and pictures of Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. There's just a joyfulness that is within them. The Book of Joy is actually a huge staple as to what launched me in starting like the membership community that I have, connecting with joy, right? Is like, how do we bring that in? And so they're meeting us with that buoyancy, but also a depth to dive into what nature is within us, also what calling is within us, and the different levels of self that are inward. And so they all point us in the same direction. They all point us to this ability to learn how to embrace and connect with all the different aspects of us. And from that connection, choose what will bring us the most balance based off of not our own mind thinking that way, but actually saying, you know what? The power of my choice, the power of where I consciously put my choice is so great. It's such an amazing power. I'm actually going to step back. I'm actually going to ask for counsel. Okay? I'm going to turn towards my heart and my soul being rooted in love, rooted in that beautiful humbleness, to open to that vulnerability, to be willing to be guided, to be coached, and to receive counsel that will help me recognize where I am being moved from within myself or from outside to within me, in hidden fears and scarcity and comparison and shadow control and tribalism, so that I can course correct. Not to again shame me or blame me or to ridicule me and to humiliate me. No, no, no. It doesn't come with any of that. If you feel that when you turn inward, you've got a harsh inner critic protective part trying to spur you on. I walked with that for many years as the first part of my journey, and I thought that that was spirit, and it wasn't. It was just a really sophisticated protective mechanism within me, rooted in what I pulled together from the teachings that I heard growing up, in a more fundamentalist kind of church environment. What I learned from the school environment of that authoritarianism, like do better, strive, you get more reward. Like all these different, the Western world talking to me, I pulled them together and made this amalgamation of what spirit was. And it was full of spurs, full of whipping myself and forcing myself and degrading myself in order to move forward. Right. And poor spirit had to work really hard to get through that one and be like, that's not me, right? That's not you. That is not you. Soften, let go of the shame, let go of the blame. Wake up from that trance of unworthiness and defensiveness and pursuit of perfection. That's not what we're up to. Instead, just find the aspect of you that's not lost. It's already there. It's already wonderful, and it's there. And so this is a tricky, tricky trap that does happen on this path because of this conditioned self that I just talked about. This self that is like, that says, when I get here, then I will have that. When I have learned my lessons, when I have done this, when I've done that, then I'll be rewarded with this. That we get really stuck in what I call promised land thinking, which is that if I am, quote, righteous enough and good enough and a good little light worker or heart centered person, if I am a good whatever it is, insert thing in there, then I will be rewarded, right? That I will have found my quote sense of self. I can laminate that thing and put it on the wall and say, I've got it. And I think one of the things that Thich Nhat Hanh was bringing us to through this teaching is that it's not a one and done thing. It's are we willing to repeatedly say yes? Are we willing to come in with this gold, like North Star energy? And are we willing to follow that? Releasing our attachments to each time we find it. Yes, satisfaction. Yes, celebration, happy dance, high five. We can definitely do that. Bring the joy, bring the laughter, bring the like, holy cow, we did that. I will never forget this. And she gave me permission to share this story all these years ago, way back when I was very first started. It probably would be like, oh, good gosh, I don't know, 17, 18 years ago now. I was running an anger management group and through equine partnered psychotherapy and coaching. And there was this beautiful being. She was just amazing. And she was so strong and she was so smart. And she was really challenging this just defensiveness that just came out of her. If somebody like gave her a slight or an insult or somebody that she cared about, I mean, she just had this warrior spirit that was there to defend. And to defend the little dog and to defend those that were voiceless because she had experienced that, right? And so she just had this veracity within her that wasn't trying to take from anybody. It was a veracity that kept people from taking from her or taking from those that she cared about from her perspective. And I will never forget that she came in one day and she was like, Miss Michelle, Miss Michelle, Miss Michelle. And this is a teen group. And I was like, yeah, what? And she's like, you wouldn't believe what I did this weekend. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I was at the store, I was pushing my cart, and somebody was being really mean to this other person. And it was a littler kid. And instead of going up to them and jerking them up and starting to like get in their face and tell them how horrible they were, and she's like, I even looked down and I saw like she had a thing of like a pork chop sitting in her thing. She's like, and I didn't even pick up that pork chop and like threaten them with it. She's like, instead, I just went over and I stood there and I looked at them and I smiled and I looked at the little one and I smiled and they stopped and they backed off. And I just turned around and walked away. And I didn't hear it starting back up. She said, but I was listening and I was willing to go back with it. And that story and the light in her eye and the joy when she realized there was another way to show up, she still probably showed up with such a fierce energy that was like, hey man, dude, not okay, right? Uh, and yet that fierce energy had love attached to it. So again, this is where I say love doesn't mean uh like allowing ourselves to be doormat. And love doesn't mean that I don't stand up and stand my center. That like no, this is rooted in respect, right? Which means it's rooted in healthy boundaries and it's rooted in a voice. It's just what type of voice is coming forward. And for that particular situation, there was no need to escalate anymore. She just needed to hold center and let somebody recognize what they were discharging from their hurt parts to another and let them on their own course correct. Let them see it, let them understand that, and let them then shift it, right? Without her going and losing her balance on her side. So I'd like to say that when we recognize that our true self includes a peaceful warrior, it includes a healer, it includes an advocate, it includes a seeker, it includes a mystic, artist, an engineer, it includes all of these different aspects of us, then it becomes a little bit easier for us to say yes. Yes to what is it and who am I being asked to show up in that moment because I can let it go. It doesn't have to be me for me to have my worth. I realize that my worth doesn't come from one definition of me. It comes from me just being me, you just being you. That makes us worthy, period. And once we have that, we can start to release our attachment to what was. And then we're more willing to let each and every moment guide us of who that is that wants to come in that one. So I want to introduce you to a card that is in the Sacred Witness Oracle deck and also the medicine that's the why behind this card of what wanted to come forward and be a totem for you as you work with this card and work with the practices that are held within the Sacred Witness Oracle guidebook and deck. And it holds the medicine of spider. Just take a look at this card. See this beautiful web, delicate, a little precarious. It's got the dew of the morning on it. And I love the soul medicine of spider coming forward from this one because the name of this card is my life as my practice, right? And the image of the spider web that the card invites you into really leaning into is both what is it like to build that web and what is it like to be the spider building that web? And what are all the things that happen to that web over and over and over again? And each day that spider has an opportunity. How does she want to move or he want to move into that day to achieve that work of that day, that purpose of that day? And each day, that chance of that web making it through the movings of the interconnectivity of the environment that it's in, both its purpose of catching things, like it's going to have quote wear and tear. Suffering is going to happen to that web. And instead of the question becomes that spider asks us when spider energy is coming forward us as that totem, as that messenger from this aspect of us, is it really asks us, what are we weaving? In the everyday movements of our life, what are we weaving? When we have to quote tend to something in our life, what are we weaving? When we feel like something's been jostled and ripped and torn apart by someone's either carelessness of just not seeing it, or someone's intentional like tearing it down, or feeling like the universe, the heavens came and ripped that branch out of that tree, right? All of the above. Like, how do we go back to that? Do we write a story of victimization? Do we get lost in the pointlessness of the rinse and repeat? Do we feel a sense of anger? How dare they? And defensiveness? Do we avoid or get annoyed? And if that is one of the main places is that we come from one of those aspects of ourselves, what type of existence would that spider feel? Not really one that I would want, right? But instead, what if that spider is weaving differently? What if it's not reading with a value statement of good or bad, worthy or not worthy, attacked or blessed? What if it's not weaving with the I want to win the best web award and look at so and so's web and look at my web and what is that in that comparison? What if it's letting that all go and simply following the creation, the inspiration that's held within their heart that day of how to build that particular web, not even attached to the web that they built yesterday or the day before, or that they'll build tomorrow. What would it feel like to be in that present moment from this place of curiosity, this place of connectivity and balance and creativity, and willing to follow this unseen guidance guiding and weaving with you. So you're not even alone. And you're not trying to understand or give weight or justify as to what happened to that web. You're just saying, here I am. And here's the work that needs to be done. And here's the creation that I get to create through that work. What would that life feel like? And so I want to acknowledge here if you're like, Michelle, this sounds great. Kind of like maybe where I was when I first got initiated into spider energy. I was like, this is great. I love this idea. Of course, I want to be this other one. Spider, that's easy for you because you don't, and then like it was like, whoa, you're putting value judgments on things that I'm asking you to see it from a different level of consciousness and then walk it back in. Right. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, this is an inner stance, right? That this can feel hard because we've got to let go of a lot of things. We've got to let go of an expectation that there should not be suffering or pain or injustice or division. There shouldn't be, once I do something and I do it well, I should be able to be like, done, promise, land, thank you, right? Like it should be protected because, oh, I followed my guidance. I did all the things, therefore, dot, 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 right? And all of a sudden it's like, nope, you got to let all that go. And it's like, oh, goodness gracious, like, and then we've got to let go of this idea that we want somebody to see it and be like, oh my gosh, that's the most amazing thing that you've ever done. And that's just like, you now have worth and you now have value. And you're not going to get quote slaughtered. All of a sudden, Charlotte Celeb just came in. Excuse me, my voice as we're working through this, right? All of this restriction of the way that we silence our voice because of everything that I'm talking about right now, right? It's just giving words to things that parts of you feel. And what if all of a sudden my purpose isn't how great of a web I can weave, who sees it, who acknowledges it, how many days it goes without getting touched because I did such a good job, right? All of a sudden, all of those measuring sticks go away and a new one comes forward. And that measuring stick is just simply, did I show up? Did I listen? Did I partner? Who was I when I showed up? What was I rooted in inside of me? And then how did I let that stance ripple out into my outer work, into my connection, and what was there? So I'd love to invite you into a short little reflection and a pause. Just notice in what is it that parts of you are weaving? Just you can go in general, or you can, if you have something that's really been pressing at you and you've been kind of like what I call gnawing at it or doing that, oh, I can never pronounce this word, reciprocal. No. Yeah. No, that's not it. That's not the right word. Hold, please. Reciprocal might be it. Like you're stuck in a conversation with somebody else and you're just feeding each other and going around and around and around. Ruminating. Ha! A ruminating thought. Thank you, Spirit, for bringing that forward because that was so not there. So those ruminating thoughts, those like choo-choo train thoughts that just keep going and we keep spinning out like, ooh, if I had said this, or if they had said this, if they would willing to see this, if they could see it this way, if I could do this, if I could, like whatever that is, think of how much energy we spend on that one. Like that too is a measuring stick, right? So if you have a specific topic, you can bring this into that. If you just want to do this in general, that works too. But really soften and welcome spider energy and welcome the energy of your quote, real self, that authentic you that's wonderful just as it is. And it's already there. You don't have to do anything to be worthy of it. You don't have to do anything to create it. It's already here, it's already within you. Oh, see if you can open. And then what are the types of the ways that you weave with either this topic or in general? So if you think of each one of those little webs as a thread, is it coming in with curiosity, with desire to open to love, like how I described it, willingness to let things be, to let go of unhealthy resistance, to let go of unhealthy protection and defense mechanisms? Like, am I willing to move from love, from curiosity, from compassion, from respect, from hope, from forgiveness? Like, what are the threads that you're weaving with on a general or in this topic? And because this is holistic, what other webs are you also weaving with or threads in this web? So, what parts of you are subtly, or maybe not so subtly, weaving in a defensive mechanism or a protective stance, a thought or a belief that you're willing to die on a cross for? We call it that righteous anger and justification. Just me, been there, done that, not throwing it. Where am I? Do I have the thread of openness and humbleness on here? St. Teresa said 3 hinges open the doors to our inner self. And that is the willingness to have self knowledge. So that's, I'm willing to be shown things that I might find uncomfortable, the desires, the thoughts, the wishes, the needs, the apathy, all of the things, including my joy, my hopes, my wishes, right? All those good things too, mixing in there. Humbleness. It takes a lot to put down the self defender and open to self respect. And then practice. We have to create the time for it. We have to create a devotion to walking with this door open. So we can put these hinges on this door, but if we don't walk up to it, turn the knob and open the door, it doesn't do us any good, right? The door just doesn't stay open on its own. Our survival self closes this door. Our personal self often closes this door. We don't actually always want to hear what's on the other side of this door. So we've got to walk up to it, turn the door, open it, and be willing to sense, see, hear, feel, know. So how does that web look for you? And what are you measuring yourself or this web by? Whose voice is in here? Whose if you walk up to that measuring stick, what names would be made by? And it could be you. It could be I promised myself at this age that I would do this, 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 and this. And anything that takes me off this path, not good. Or I condemned myself at this age that I wouldn't be able to do X, Y, and Z. And so now I have the measuring stick that has a cap to it. And anytime I try to go above that cap, some part of me picks up that stick and wapows me. I had a piano teacher that did that until I broke the stick over their head. Took me a while to figure out the balance side of it. I think that's why I love the chopstick story so much. Is I was like, oh, I see myself in that. But I'm the peaceful warrior now. And if you were to kneel at the altar of your life right now, what would be showing up there for you to reflect on, for you to acknowledge, become aware of, for you to challenge yourself with, and wrestle and move into that uncomfortable place of awakening and growing up and letting go and integrating a new way of being? Like, how hard is that when we are asked to witness something, to pivot, to let go, to open, to course correct? And when that happens, and when you see what's at that altar of life that's coming forward to you, there's some simple questions we can ask ourselves now. Am I willing to learn from what I'm seeing and witnessing? Am I willing to let what I am witnessing, this is a key aspect of the sacred witness, inform me? So once I wake up and see it, I have to be willing to grow. I have to be willing to stretch to see that there might be a different way, that I'm being asked to sense, see, hear, feel, know, shift my perspective on the fence post. Am I willing to be with that? Am I willing to honor this new knowing or way of being for myself? Give it the self respect. There is an order, a method to my madness of how I unroll these episodes. But are you willing to be in a place that says, even if I don't feel it super solid right now, yes, yes, I would like to try to honor myself, even if nobody else does? And if you can't say that and you know that you have somebody's name or somebody's face sitting there with you of saying, like, I will measure myself against this person or this concept or this belief or this idea in some unhealthy ways instead of aspirations. Like all the mentors that I bring forward, these bring forward aspirations for me instead of wax, right? And so, are you willing to remember the mantra that I gave at the beginning of this episode, that I am enough as I am right now? This is my purpose, to be as much of my true self as I can, because it's there and it's wonderful and it's amazing. And I can honor it. Tying back into the question right now, even if nobody else does. If nobody else celebrates it, nobody else sees it, nobody else validates it, I honor it within myself. And am I willing to give that same honoring to you, to your path? So am I willing to give it to another that says, I honor that they have the right to say yes, no, and maybe. They have the right to show up however they're going to show up. And it's not my place to judge that. It's my place to see it, to understand it, to work with it from this clarity of discernment of like, wow, this is what's happening here. I'm going to let it be. I'm going to open to what it is here so that I can shift and match from my side what I am being guided to do to be in balance. And I release that my balance comes from the other, and therefore I can respect them wherever they're at. I don't have to demonize them. I don't have to like uh condemn them. I don't have to condone them. I don't have to do anything with them. I'm actually completely neutral and void. Do I have parts of me that might want something from them in that relationship, in that connection, in that quote future, in our exchanges? Absolutely. But am I bound by those? No. We let those go. We do the grief work. We do the inward disappointment, disillusionment. We tend to those parts of ourselves, of that web that got a little tattered, right? But yet we can allow the other to be just as they are with true love, true, genuine love, no ill will, because we're willing to show up at the altar of our life, then we allow them to show up at the altar of their life. It's not my job. It's not my responsibility. I don't need to move them one piece or way of the other because there's enough. Right? And just know that each day we have this opportunity to ask. We have this opportunity to reflect in, what am I building? Like, what type of threads am I using in what I'm weaving? And then opening up to this idea of, then can I honor it? If nobody else around me sees what I'm weaving and honors the threads that I've decided to use and pick and painstakingly sometimes heart-wrenchingly switch out different threads, be like, okay, I am going to take down this thread from this web and I am going to weave in another one, even though every part of me wants to keep that one in. And then I'm going to trust that this beautiful web can hold me, can be with me, and allow me to be guided into what are some of the choices that will best serve me. So I have a whole nother part of this particular episode, but I think I'm going to leave it right there. I think that that feels like a good place to let you lean in to practice this practice a little bit. And then in part two, I'll share a little bit more about this weaving energy, another beautiful energy that comes in that can be a guide for it. If spider energy is a little bit, then I've got a Greek mythology and a healer that's also in astrology as well, between the Chiron and the Characol mix, which is his wife. And her name means the weaver of light. So we'll dive into that, and we'll dive into another invitation that comes out of Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching in the next one in part two. And I'll leave you with this. So I would love to hear how this practice goes, what it illuminates in your life, how it maybe helps create some pauses and awareness to that. It's always about just welcoming yourself home, coming home to you, because a worthy you is there. And that's the first step, the second step, the third step, the step that is a core part of every healing journey. So offering you light, love, and joy, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Thank you for listening to Soulful Practices. For more information on how to work directly with me or one of my guests, check out the show notes below. We'd love for you to also let us know what parts of this episode are speaking to you and how this practice is supporting you on your healing and spiritual journey. Please share this podcast with fellow seekers, travelers. Together, we can create a wave of soul-led beings in this world, offering you light, love, and joy on your journey. Michelle Holling-Brooks. Until next time.